Welcome to our board game podcast, A Master's Degree in Rolling Terribly, where you am dirt, I am dirt, everybody am dirt. I'm your host, Eddie, and joining me is my co-host, a man who, needs an introduction because no one knows who he is. Gaz! Say hi, Gaz.
Hi, guys.
Gaz, could you give everyone a brief rundown on what we're about and why we may or may not be awesome?
Well, we like board games, and we play a lot of board games with our friends. Not as much as we'd like to, due to life. But what we do is we enjoy those experiences, and we like to talk about those experiences. So we thought that sometime someone else might want to listen to us talk about those experiences. So hopefully you do, and that's why you're here. And we can entertain you. So stick around, and we promise we'll at least keep talking. Whether we're entertaining or not, you can be the judge of that one.
Definitely. I'll give you a brief intro. So I'm Teddy. Gaz and I are based in Melbourne, Australia. I like to play board games and computer games for that matter, and video games and anything basically game related. We've got a gaming group, as Gaz mentioned, that we've been playing games with for many years, and we, have kind of dropped off a little bit as the last couple of months or last couple of years, as various people and members have children and have different responsibilities and family commitments and COVID and all of that. But when we do catch up, it's still a good time, and we still make the effort to catch up for big yearly events such as our weekend away, which we've dubbed Game Mania, and I think we're up to Game Mania 5 coming up in the next 2 months.
Pretty
Very
excited about that.
exciting. That's right. But yeah, like I said, Australian. We want to see more Australian content out there. So let's get to more of that.
That's it. And I think where we really come from is that because we don't get to play games as often as we like, me and Daddy constantly talk about how we don't get to play games enough and then end up spending all of our gaming time talking about playing games. So we feel like this is part of our pastime when it comes to gaming, and that's why we want to just continue and kind of make it official and have some direction to it. So hopefully it brings a little bit of joy, and it motivates us to play some different games as well, which is what we're all about.
Absolutely. But what at the moment we're looking at Frosthaven. Frosthaven being the next big game by Isaac Childress of Gloomhaven fame. Frosthaven's on my table at the moment, in a box ready to be unpacked, and we actually have our first game of that coming up this Monday. And in eager anticipation of that, I decided that we were going to basically do a podcast where we actually discussed the Frosthaven journey. And because I'm dying to open it up, punch it, and sort of all that, and get it all ready for us, I'm unfortunately going to have to wait. So a bit of a backstory on where Gloomhaven and myself kind of came together was back in 2014 when I kind of discovered the hobby, and I discovered BGG, and I discovered Kickstarter, and I was understanding the whole process as to why these people were putting a lot of money into these publishers and designers into these games that you weren't going to see for a couple of years, right? Depending on how late they actually go. But I actually backed a whole bunch of games. And Gloomhaven, actually, the original first running, which was a campaign that happened back in 2015, was one that I actually backed. Not knowing too much about it other than I grew up with a lot of Diablo, grew up with a lot of fantasy and Dungeons and Dragons and Baldur's Gate and all that kind of stuff. So I actually liked the idea of what Gloomhaven was sounding like, right? So this came out as a campaign back in 2015, and I backed it along with a whole bunch of other games. Now, this game ended up probably making just under 400,000 US, right? Which, if you look at the grand scheme of things these days, is not, it's a lot of money, but it's not your Kingdom Death Monsters and your Zombicides and all of that with Cool Mini or not, right? We're talking those games constantly pump out millions when it comes to a Kickstarter. So this was.
And just jump in there, sorry, Isaac was pretty unknown at that stage as well. My background and knowledge isn't much around the games, but I feel like this was one of his early pieces, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, he actually had another game. It was called Forge War, and it was his only game. He's nearly a one-man, company. And he actually got a bit of success from that. Now, if I looked him up, which I can't remember, I'm pretty sure he's almost got like some engineering degree or engineering masters, blah blah blah. He's a really, really smart guy. And it was like go down that path in terms of career. But after because he's got a love for board games, after his first Kickstarter, which was Forge War, which did okay, um, compared to what we see now, he decided, yeah, I was going to go down board game designing instead. And this is where Gloomhaven came out as his second project. And if you look at it from someone who's essentially a first time designer, to put something on the scale of Gloomhaven was crazy. So I backed it, and it finally, delivered. And my housemate received the copy. I wasn't actually at home, and he sort of opened it up and checked through the rule book and decided this game looks amazing. He actually messaged me and said to me, "Hey, you need to come home from overseas or wherever you are because we need to play this." And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, calm down, right?" So I came home. I had a bit of a scan of the rule book to get an idea of what it was, while he's yelling in my ear about, "Oh, there's this, it's got classes, it's got all these boxes that we can't even open yet." And I've gone, "Wow, okay, this sounds fantastic." So we ended up setting it up, and we ended up playing the game, and it blew our minds. And while this was all happening, the secondhand market was huge. Like everyone was trying to sell their copies for ridiculous amounts. Uh, you knew a second run had to come because Isaac just had to accept the fact that wow, he's really sitting on something crazy here. So he brought out the second one, which came out in 2017. The same year we actually received ours, he had to do a second run, and that one made just under 4 million US, which was insane.
I mean, I remember my experience with that as well was coming over to your place and for some reason not to play Gloomhaven and seeing the game set up on the table and kind of asking what's that. And yeah, I remember, yeah, your housemate and yourself like, yeah, cool, it's this game, it's that game, and I was just like, all right, let's go. Like, we're not doing anything, let's have a crack.
Mm.
And instantly just kind of was immersed in just the depth of it. I played when I was a lot younger. Played a lot of games like Hero Quest, Space Crusade, Game Boy Dark World, if anyone's heard of that, and they're like really
I
really old like me. And
actually haven't.
they're those old school dungeon crawlers, roll a d6 and then you die, or roll a skull and that kind of stuff, right? So I haven't played a lot of the modern day dungeon crawlers because most of them tend to be like super luck driven, right? Which we'll talk about a bit later is what makes Gloomhaven so appealing. And so you kind of have a limited span on them because they're either really brutal or they're just super easy. Or they're like Talisman, and yeah, playing that game, I remember being sucked in, and I actually remember having plans every Wednesday and coming over on a Wednesday and then being like, all right, cool, well, I'm actually going to cancel the other plans that I was going to have every Wednesday so that I can come here each week and play this game. Like,
Well, you,
literally, it's
you
like,
can't
this is
miss it,
what I'm
right?
doing, right? Like, we are doing this every week.
It's
We
right.
have to because we're going to play through this map that looks like Baldur's Gate that we're going to explore and put stickers on. I've got this class with these cards that I'm not allowed to look at yet, and just so much unknown that I wanted to. It was just like, well, this is what I have to do. Um,
Yeah.
Now, unfortunately, in my journey, my Gloomhaven journey, not unfortunately my life journey, but about 3 months into this, my son was born. So I took a 3 month hiatus from our group, and talk about the group in a bit. So I kind of did a chunk of Gloomhaven and missed about 3 months, and then came back for the last couple of months as we finished up the campaign. So I kind of missed the middle part. But since then, I've actually played the digital version a lot with one of my other mates. So I've managed to fill in a lot of those gaps, and it's actually been a really good ramp up into Frosthaven because I kind of had the bug again. So it's not like a game 5 years ago that I played; it's like a game I'm kind of currently playing. So
Whereas, yeah, it's been, I don't know, five. How old's Dash now?
five and a half.
Oh, yeah, well, there you go. It's been like 5.5 years since, oh, 5 years since we played. I played Gloomhaven, and I haven't really touched it since in any capacity because I didn't actually play the digital implementation, even though I knew when it came out this is going to be a brilliant way to introduce people who play computer games and into it. And it did, from what I could see, a phenomenal job of transporting that system into a digital one without changing too much of what was fundamentally Gloomhaven, and all of that, which is no fantastic, fantastic. What? I'd like to do now is maybe go through some of our memories of Gloomhaven and I guess what we like so much about the design, what made it special, in comparison to other games, and yeah, just what we loved about it. Personally, I will start off with just saying the top down, top of a card, bottom of a card, make those choice, decision space. Any other game I can think of, well, most other games I can think of in any form of dungeon or, you activate your character, you've got a move allocation, you've got an attack allocation, you've got a certain amount of actions, right? And you got to roll, dice to resolve combat and whatnot. The way it was done in this game was you have a hand of cards that were unique to your class, and they were all, in a way, very different to every other class. And the game's got like 17 odd classes. So you'd have a hand of cards, and you would be basically choosing two every single turn. And but each card was broken into a top and a bottom action, and one of them was generally a move action, but it may not be. And the other one's usually an attack action or an AoE spell or a looting action or something like that, with an initiative tied in the middle. And the puzzle of selecting two cards each and every round was just like that alone was just mind-blowingly clever.
Yeah, I think that part there for me, it's you have so many options. You very rarely do you feel hamstrung in that you can't do something. Um, and a lot of the time it just comes down to a cost. So you could blow that burn card and do a really big turn early on, but you know that it's a game of attrition. Um, or you could have a really good card that's in your discard pile, and or if all I have to do is do a short rest and I can get that back. But that's actually it's not efficient, right? Like maybe I'll just do these other little things, and so it's a really good balance between giving you lots of options, not giving you unlimited options, but also going, well, there's a test your luck element to it, or push your luck, or that kind of, well, how hard do you want to go, how soon? Because you don't know what's through that next door, right?
That's
You don't
true.
know how many rooms there are going to be, or how bad the monsters are going to be, or just how many misses you're going to draw and make that room take that much longer. So
That,
yeah, those decisions become really critical. And I think that from a game design perspective, what I love is that you never feel cheated by the game. You do when you draw that miss, when you had a really big turn, and it could have been awesome if it went off. But
mm,
anytime we would lose a campaign, I never felt like, oh, this game is just broken or doesn't work properly. It's always like, well, we all made dozens of decisions. There's probably something in there that we did wrong.
mm. No, definitely, definitely, definitely. Personal goals. Just the fact that when you roll a character, right? You roll a character for the first time, and you get to see, all of the components with that character and all the cards and whatnot. But then, you get a journal card essentially that's giving you a background of what the ultimate goal of that particular character is. And generally, in our game anyway, we didn't actually share that information at all. But it could be something as simple as kill X amount of this particular enemy unit, which may not appear for the next 5 scenarios that you'll be playing, because you never know what you're actually going to come across unless thematically you have to kill an ooze or something that most likely is going to be in some kind of a sewer or some kind of a cave system, to completing X amount of scenarios in a certain location, but you've only unlocked a certain amount, so you don't know when you're going to unlock the rest. To collecting a certain amount of gold, which gold is really important when it comes to upgrading cards or buying gear. So you kind of need to save that. Like you are given this long-term epic task that you're going to be carrying through so much of the campaign. And tied to that is a phenomenal retirement system in that once you actually finish it, you're essentially saying goodbye to the character. You've been essentially playing for weeks, maybe even months. And I remember the very first character I played being the Mind Thief. I think it may have retired at level 4 or 5. I think it may have gotten to 5. I ticked over into an Elementalist, right? And I had so much fun with that Elementalist. Even though there's not a lot of story built around the individual character, just how often I played it and how familiar I got with it and upgrading it. It got to level 9 and then some. I spent a crap load of money on cards to enhance them and whatnot, but it did finally retire. And it was so weird that I actually kind of felt this weird emotional kind of, I don't know, attachment to a character that I'd literally been playing for months. I can't even tell you the next character I got after that. That was how it felt when I was playing that.
Yeah, that the retirement process, the way that the game again, from a design perspective, factored in how you should cycle through characters rather than just be an arbitrary, oh, I just want to change characters now. I'm going to
Mm,
re-roll. And tying all that into the way that you unlock new content, so be the new characters or sometimes it's weapon designs and stuff like that, was a really, really great way of sucking everyone in. And as you said, I remember there being characters that you would play and you'd be like, oh, I could probably achieve this retirement goal soon, but I don't want to, right?
mm,
So I'm going to avoid doing these things. And some of them are more controllable than others, and that was probably going to be one of the things that I mentioned that I slightly don't like about a couple of the aspects, the personal goals and some of the battle goals and things we'll talk about later, is the random element can cause it to be out of your control to a degree. And there was also this weird way that you kind of coy about suggesting that you do things without mentioning that maybe it's because you've got a personal goal. So it becomes a bit of a meme. It's like, hey, can we go kill oozes, please? It's like,
mhm.
why do you need to do that? Oh, I don't know. Just because I don't like oozes, I guess. But it doesn't detract from the game at all, right? It is
Not at
just
all.
that it's almost a necessary evil to have there so that you can have this really rich experience and process of personal goals and going through that. Because I don't think it would work anywhere near as well if it was just do X amount of scenarios or once you reach level 9 you retire. Because I don't think you'd have that I don't know, that growth in a sense. Um, which
Other games that are doing something similar with a narrative and a storyline and a campaign. It's like from this crew of characters, right? And take them through. And the only thing that I can remember is you level up and you get access to new abilities and maybe some new gear. But it's the fact that this takes it further with the potential to get another character through an unlocking system. And I like that approach is that it
mm,
keeps it relatively fresh. It's not just we're progressing the story, because to be honest with you, I didn't think the story was too amazing. The writing in particular, didn't think it was that good. It was basically held together from its phenomenal gameplay.
yeah, and I think, I mean, I've played a lot more of the digital version recently, and because there's only two of us playing, and you can kind of optimize what well, we've burnt through most of the classes, so I've got to experience most of those, and I definitely feel like um, you do get uh, a lot more from playing a character for longer. Um, but at the same point, it gets a point where you're like, I just want to refresh, right? Like I've been playing a brute and I've been playing a certain way, all my cards work in a certain way, and then I retire that and I got I think it's the Harrower, which is basically this really weird class that poisons things, it's range, it's melee, it's all this. And you're like, wow, this class is completely different. This character's 100% different. I feel like I'm playing a completely different game now. And I think it's so important in a long game like this that you have that because otherwise, again, if I think back to the old days of playing Hero Quest, yeah, you could buy gear, but I was always just move forward, attack, right? The gear
Mm,
only gave me an extra dice or maybe a bonus of some sort, but it was never play the game in a different way. So
mm.
I think it really kind of changed. I guess for me, I haven't played a lot of the other dungeon crawlers, but it changed how I looked at dungeon crawlers and what they could possibly do. So
Mm. And the fact that they changed combat system, I mean, you got the attack modifier deck, which also evolves. It's not just your character and the cards you get, but the perk system, right? You get to unlock new perks, which means take away two -1 cards out of your modifier deck and add +2 rolling modifiers with, I don't know, something like stun, which we found was really OP back then.
yeah,
Because we were playing it wrong.
but yeah, funny about how rules can be really abilities can be really broken when you're doing them wrong, right? So um,
But
but
like the character differences, obviously, the and the play styles, because you've got your melee, your range, your pet classes, your tank. It's literally got everything. And then finally, yeah, you got your things like your legacy components where we're doing road events and we're reading it. Only one person's reading it. It was really cool to actually get to a crossroad where we haven't actually heard the card before, because a lot of the cards do cycle, and actually making a decision that has led to, well, you've selected A, so receive this and tear up the card, and actually performing that every time and just knowing that, well, we're gonna have to play this second time to see it all eventually, right? Because you just don't know. what you're missing out on.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And I mean, a different track maybe, and not that we want to look at it in a negative light. I was just thinking around, with Frosthaven coming up, it is sitting on your table, and we are looking forward to playing it. Was there anything from Gloomhaven that you would like improve? I mean, you mentioned the story, which I think is a pretty big slap, so take that, Isaac. But it's, I think. Is there anything you'd like to see done differently, just from not overhauling, but just a slight improvement in the experience? Something you felt was just either a little bit clunky or didn't give you the full experience of what you wanted?
I think that nowadays we're spoiled because when we had the game, we had to run it like proper. And what I mean by that is every monster has a attack deck of what they're or an action deck of what they're going to do, and we had to shuffle pile after pile after pile as well as our own piles, and there was a lot of admin involved. So over time, apps and programs and things like that came out, so we could manage a lot of that. But at the beginning, a lot of it was really hard to keep track of. That's purely a us problem, right? That's purely a us from running it.
So yeah, I remember that now. When I first started playing, we had all the cards, lots of stuff everywhere. It was slowish, lots of admin, not clunky, but lots of stuff. You had to just be very aware of the details so you didn't skip over stuff. And then when I came back after my hiatus, suddenly we had an iPad with an app, and we were flicking through that. I'm like, whoa, this is so much more efficient. Like,
Yeah.
let's go. So yeah, I even between that the start and kind of end of Gloomhaven on our campaign, I remember there being massive improvements there.
Yeah, and then they got all these different programs now that actually will actually run your whole campaign. Back to what you were asking, what I did find clunky was literally navigating that campaign sometimes because you would read the beginning of a scenario, and because I was kind of in charge of doing that, although Matt really wanted to um, set that up for the group every now and then, in reading the introduction, finding out the requirements. Are we meeting the requirements for this particular scenario? And then if you complete it, it unlocks this one and this one, but then it blocks off this one. You know, it became a little bit confusing sometimes, and I'm almost certain we messed it up a little bit in that we had access to maybe some scenarios that we shouldn't have, and we didn't because I vaguely remember a certain time we got to a stage where we're like, well, we're out of campaigns, like we're out of scenarios, but that doesn't feel right, and we had to go back and read some of the previous ones to work out what have we locked and unlocked. I found that like it could be a group thing, right? It may not be a game thing, but yeah, it was something that I'm hoping is cleaner in Frosthaven.
Yeah, it's really interesting because playing the digital version, and this is something that I think I mentioned to you the other day. I've been spoiled because I don't have to do any admin. The game just
Ah,
pushes me forward. But if I think about how, in the digital version, for those that haven't seen it, you basically just your main screen before when you're not in a scenario, you're looking at the map, which is kind of the map that you would have in front of you for Gloomhaven, where you put your stickers on, and even navigating that. The mate that I'm playing with will be like, "Oh, do you want to do such and such mission?" Because we've got unlocked like 12 or 13 or 15 missions, right? They're all so many options because they're listed down the side, and it takes a few seconds to actually locate where he's talking about. I can't even imagine having to do that based on just looking at a map and having a book. Like
mm,
there's bound to be human error or something you've missed in that instance, and
mm,
yeah, you're right. Like it's probably something that they've learnt from to allow it to either be better tracked or just streamline that in some way. So
mm. Yeah, I would say that that would probably be probably one of the main things that I would like them. You can't help the fact that the system that Isaac has put in place with the actual monster card ability thing, that when at the beginning of every round to determine initiative, you draw one of these for every monster type, right? Now that can easily be replaced with an app or a program or whatever. But the fact that it was there originally and that was the way it was supposed to be was good, and I really really like that. It's a given someone's going to find a more efficient and faster way to minimize the amount of shuffling and the amount of mistakes from not reshuffling them when you see that little round symbol down the bottom right hand corner of the card, because it's so easy to miss. And everyone's so excited about, picking their next cards and whatnot. So when you're going through all of those admin processes, yeah, it's a given that people are going to come up with these apps to fast track it and make it easier. which is what I intend to do with Frosthaven, and have a look at what some of the newer implementations on the phone apps and iPads and the computer and all of that to try and make it not change it into a digital game completely, but just remove some of the TDM from some of the shuffling and all of that.
Yeah, yeah, no, that it'll be good to see that and see what people have been able to do with it all. And
Yeah,
I think for me, probably the main thing that, and again, it's not a criticism at all. It's probably more just through playing it for so long, is around the battle goal system, which we haven't really talked about. But for
you
those,
have mentioned that. Yeah,
just I find that that being the main access you've got to building your modifier deck and getting your perks, which is a really cool part of the game, sometimes just tends to be just way too random in regards to either this is impossible for my character to do, or this is just a given. And I'm just hoping that they also get you kind of get you see the same ones again and again. One of the things that Jaws of the Lion did, because that's actually part of, it came out a few months ago and integrated with the digital one, because that's the basically kind of starter edition of Gloomhaven that came out a fair bit after Gloomhaven. It kind of had a few characters, had different missions. It was, from my understanding, released as a bit of a separate, but hey, if you wanted to give Gloomhaven a shot, it's not Gloomhaven Light at all because it's full rules, but the missions are a bit smaller. There's only 5 characters, I think, and it just provides like a little bit more accessible for someone who doesn't want to commit to a 90 scenario, like 12 or 18-month campaign. They actually added in a bunch of battle goals in there, and that was really refreshing because once they got added in, I was like, oh wow, there's some really interesting ones in here. There's some new ones, and I feel like that's almost how they can start off in Frosthaven. If they've got a lot more of them, feel a bit more refreshing.
yes. I see. I knew nothing about Jaws of the Lion. Right, I know what it was when it came out. It was straight to a Target exclusive kind of thing, and it wasn't a Kickstarter or anything like that. So I never got into it, never played it. I have seen it in the shops, and the idea of doing it was considered to be almost like an entry point into Gloomhaven because it was on a much smaller scale. How did you find it?
Yeah, like the classes we've played through seemed really good. As
Is
in
it
really good.
separate to Gloomhaven? Like you're playing a Jaws of the Lion campaign, or are you implementing the classes into Gloomhaven? How does it work?
Yeah, so you can do both. I'm not sure what happens if you just only owned Jaws of the Lion, but from my understanding of looking into it, it does come with its own scenario book, characters, and you just play through that as a mini version of Gloomhaven. But if you own Gloomhaven, and this is how the digital version did it, so if people correct me if it's different with the physical version and integration. But I know that they've tried to stick really close to that with the digital, is that it just implements everything and there basically becomes a new bunch of scenarios you can access, or scenario chain that you can access in Gloomhaven. And then when you create a character, you instantly have access to I think it's 5 new characters that it brought.
Okay.
But it's basically as we're playing it now, just
So
all
the
one game.
fundamentals to it, where the characters and all that, they're not like, this character's instead of having a standard 12 hand or 8 card hand, etc., they're making it like super easy. It's not baby's first Gloomhaven or anything like that, is it?
No, no, not at all.
Okay.
Some of the classes actually, one of them, the Void Warden, I think it was one of the ones I played, um, really complex and really weird. Like it was this
Hmm.
bizarre support class that did a lot of granting other characters attacks and moves, um, debuffing themselves to provide bigger debuffs, and it was a very weird character when I got it, and actually thinking about it now from someone who's brand new, if that was the one you chose, I mean, maybe if that's your starting point, you're like, well, this is my new standard, right? Like, I only know one thing, but it was quite complex character in a sense, like not hard, but it definitely, I know the first couple of missions I was playing, I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just picking cards and hopefully it lines up. And by the end, you kind of get a hang of it. That's one of the really cool things about Gloomhaven is you get a feel for the character and cards. But no, the characters were all had really cool themes to them. Had some good combos. Again,
You know
neither.
me.
Yeah.
You know me. Do you think this is something that, let's just say, Frosthaven's done, and we've got the biggest gap between the next thing? Would it be worthwhile playing through a Jaws of the Lion campaign?
I mean, maybe if we were that far out from Frosthaven and we wanted another haven fix, let's say,
Like
right?
Bankhaven or something?
Yeah, yeah, then possibly. I mean, I'd highly recommend it anyone. If Frosthaven wasn't sitting on your table, and we were dying
Mm,
to play something as kind of getting in kind of, that appetite for it, that appetizer, I'd recommend it.
mm,
The only reason I didn't is because I'm playing through it online. But it's definitely an intro if somebody wants to go, you know what, I haven't tried Gloomhaven. Maybe you've only got one person to play with, right?
mm,
It's probably a good place to start just to see if you like the system. Because as I said, it's not rules light at all, from my understanding anyway. Again,
mm.
implemented with the digital version, so maybe that's different, but it seems to be, hey, here's the game. So
Some of the criticisms that Gloomhaven did cop, at least from scanning things like Reddit, Board Game Geek, etc., was that there was an issue with a lot of people had, and I believe that when you purchase the game, you can do whatever the hell you want with it, right? It's yours. You don't sit there have to listen to the rules and follow them exactly word for word, right? Which is something I like to do, making sure I follow it exactly how it was designed. But there were some people that were complaining about the lack of sharing of money and lack of sharing of items, and that once they've cleared a scenario, there's all this money left on the floor, and they were making house rules regarding, well, this is ours. We didn't have time to pick it up, so we'll just add it all up and divvy it between the characters and whatnot. Like, those were considered to be some of the issues. Also, communication. They didn't like that with Gloomhaven. You can't give exact information on cards or whatnot, initiative numbers and things like that to plan your turn out a certain way. It's all designed around this. But they were saying, well, that's not as fun, right? Well, what are your thoughts on making those kind of a change?
look, it's really hard. I like talking about changes. I like talking about changes to games. I know you hate it because
Yeah.
I like, hey, I wonder if, and you're like,
Yeah.
play the game as it's supposed to be played. And I'm actually fundamentally on the same page as you. Like, I feel like the designer designs it, people can modify it. You can, going out to the masses, it gets heaps of playtesting, way more than the designers ever can. And I feel like with enough plays, there are erratas that can be made, maybe general house rules that can get accepted. But from those, I mean, again, I've played a decent amount of Gloomhaven, enough to see kind of where and how you go about it. I don't think that that's a required change. If it works for your group, that's fine. Having heaps more gold doesn't really make that much of a difference in Gloomhaven. I mean, basically, the enchantments are almost insanely expensive anyway. So basically, it just means people would have more enchantments because you only have a certain amount of slots for your gear, and you usually fill up on gear at a decent rate anyway. So having the extra money wouldn't really make a difference there. It just, I found that what happens a bit, and the only reason I could possibly foresee looking at a rule like that, and I'm not saying I would do it, but what I would consider it is it can get very boring and analysis paralysis at the end when you've got one or two monsters left, but all characters have 5 or 6 cards left in their hand, and there's heaps of gold. So what you do is you end up spending the next half an hour playing out this loot collecting game, right? Because it's there, and well, I can get XP or I can get. So it's like that weird thing of like you don't need to do it, but kind of it's there. We should do it. So I would like some form of in between. Like maybe at the end of a scenario, everyone gets to loot one pile of gold, right? Like if it's left on the ground. Like not saying this should be the rule, but something that they test and is in the theme of the game and the game's balanced around. I wouldn't mind. But the problem is if you do that, then everyone will be like, oh, great, we get a free one. So we only have to loot everyone but one per character. So you don't end up fixing anything, right? Um, I'd say for um
Just on the
other,
communication wise,
mm,
right? And one thing I love is chaos, right? I like chaos in my games. I like an element of uncertainty, and that usually comes in the form of RNG. But in a PvP style game, when you're playing against opponents, it's in their brain essentially. And what I like about the fact that he's implemented this on the initiative system and not we make it clear, hey, I'm gonna go deal with this guy, you're gonna go deal with this guy, while our good friend Matt is running off and collecting loot in the other room, right? And I like the fact that, I didn't fully like the fact that that was a player thing, but it is something that's in the game. And when you get your cards right and you go to do something and you miscommunicate it because you can't communicate too much and it completely fluffs your turn, I like that. And I've been on the receiving end of that so many times where someone's killed something, or the thing I'm supposed to kill, I failed because I pulled my null, or we're both hitting the same target, but he's going before me, and he pulls out a fat crit and kills it, and I'm like, great, I didn't select a move card, so I guess I'll just stand here and both these cards will go there. That's risk reward. It's the game. That's how I see it in my head.
Yeah, I have to 100% agree with that. I think that choosing your cards and someone else choosing their cards, and either through luck or through them going quicker than you or some other random event for some reason, player driven or not, means you don't get to do the thing that you wanted to do is just the game, right? Like, and that's almost part of the risk reward, because when you're looking at your cards, I know I do this a lot. I go, all right, I could move there and I could hit this thing. Or I could do this cool thing, jump here, do this ability, and push this guy to here and do that. Now, it means that I need to go before this guy, but after this guy, right? And in a perfect world, it'll work. Now, when you're dreaming this magical Christmas land, it's amazing. And if you want to go for that, I think you should. I'm always 100% in for trying to make that work. But you then can't get if you are like, oh man, you killed the monster I was supposed to, and now I can't do my mega ultimate combo.
Mm,
Um, on the other side, though, of the information sharing, I think that I think it's fine. The problem that you can run into, though, and I think I found it a bit with our group towards the end, so it'll be interesting. I know it's a different group we're playing with this time with Frosthaven, is it's similar to some of those no information sharing kind of co-op-y games. Like Hanabi comes to mind for lack of a better term, which we won't go into other games. But when you're constantly in a space where you're not allowed to share information, the default is to start coming up with this weird code. And I feel that's one of the problems with that no information sharing. And that's 100% a player driven thing. You've got to make sure you don't do it. But you can start metaing it.
yeah.
And I mean, again, with perfect information, everyone can remember what cards you've got, right? So, you know, by 10, 15 scenarios in, I'll know that your fastest initiative might be 12. So if
That's so true.
you
I
go,
remember
I'm
I remember
going,
doing all that. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And I think that memorizing that stuff takes away from the experience a bit, because I do like the randomness, but I don't begrudge people for doing it. So I think it's whatever your play group wants. And honestly, with both the should your house rule, how to collect gold, how does information sharing work, you make what works for your group. And if your group's having an amazing time doing whatever house rules you put in or how to play your game, then you're doing it right. And I don't like someone jumping online telling everyone else that they're doing it right or wrong, right? If you want to follow it by the book, you do it. If you want to make up all these house rules and your group's having a great time, do it. That's it. As long as at the end of the day, the people playing are having an awesome experience, that's what should happen.
Yeah. Definitely. I did read recently that a father was playing with his two kids, and they play in that when you can unlock any character from day one. Like the very first scenario, they were breaking through some of the sealed envelopes and cracking open some of the classes that you don't get until much later, and then they were building their deck from level 9 card, level 7 card, whatever the hell they wanted to do, and it was skewed towards full making sure the boys were having a really good time and they had an absolute blast. And they wanted to do the same thing when Frosthaven came, and they were just like, guys, before we do this, has anything changed in the game that means that our system of playing this wouldn't be fun? And of course, people jumped on top of it. Some people were like, oh, "What do you mean you can't do that? Like, that's not how you know." And other people were like, "You do you. It's literally finding your own happiness out of it." And that's pretty much how he kind of did that.
as someone with kids, making things fun definitely comes into play. I know I've lost many games of Snakes and Ladders, or cheated the reverse way to make myself lose so that they have more fun and win. Um, because I think that at the end of the day, that's what they're all about. And yeah, like lining up a bunch of minis and looking at a bunch of pictures and saying, "Hey, who looks cool? Who do you want to be?"
Mm.
Is sounds like a great way to play it because the game is so rich, right?
Mm.
Like if you go, hey, because there's so many characters that are so cool that if they were all open at the start and said, which who do you want to be? I totally just look at the minis and pick one and go that one. So
So
I don't,
why aren't we playing that way?
because I also I rate higher the experience of discovery
Okay.
than the experience of just because we'll get there, right?
We haven't opened it. We haven't opened it yet. We can do it exactly the way you want to do it. You want to go straight to how about we play a 6 player, no, 8 player, an 8 player campaign, and two people control one character, and they get half the deck each.
We have enough trouble getting 4 people together. I don't know about 8 people. So let's just stick with the way that Isaac envisioned it, and we can critique it later on.
Okay, okay. Well, speaking of Monday, when we do start our Frosthaven campaign, a little bit on where Frosthaven kind of came from, obviously from Gloomhaven's success. That campaign finally hit Kickstarter after many teasers and many bits of bobs of information that was coming out. Isaac dropped that one on us in April of 2020, and it raised nearly 13 million US. So from that little indie designer a long time ago, he's really done really well for himself, and it's basically gone on to become one of the most anticipated games. Gloomhaven knocked off Pandemic Legacy, which knocked off Twilight Struggle on the top of BGG in my gaming, board game lifespan. I've only ever seen Twilight Struggle when I started, into Pandemic Legacy Season 1, into Gloomhaven. It's still Gloomhaven right now. So it's super anticipated when a sequel is going to come out, and it'd be exciting to kind of see what actually happens with that. Um, I wasn't overly excited knowing that this was arriving. I technically haven't played Gloomhaven for many, many years, and I found that just remembering how much time went into it and the amount of months and getting the group together consistently and all of that, thinking about it was a little bit exhausting, and I wasn't too sure whether or not that was going to be a thing.
Yeah, actually, I feel like I started to take on the same. We won't call it anxiety because it's probably too strong a word, but also hesitancy around the game because I had no idea when it was supposed to come out because it's been delayed forever. And I remember being like, "Yeah, Frosthaven, that's gonna be when's that coming out?" And you'd be like, "Oh yeah," I was like, "I don't know who we're gonna play with and how's that gonna work?" And by the
Mm.
end, I was kind of like, "Oh yeah, maybe it's not gonna happen, or it probably isn't gonna happen." So I became not very excited about it. Um,
Okay,
until
sorry.
no, this is completely fine because I think they were all valid concerns, and until you sent me the photo of the game sitting on your floor as it had just been arrived the package, and then suddenly my excitement went up to 11.
Yeah, and then mine went up to 11 because you got excited for it, and then it was kind of like, oh, maybe we can. And then we had Phil, right, my other friend, who I've been playing a lot of games with another game group, was super excited because I know he's been wanting to sort of run Oathsworn with me. So it was kind of like, oh, we've kind of got the fundamentals of a group here, and I know the availability is there. It's almost like that little window kind of opened up of, hey, do you guys want to do this? And it was kind of like, okay, let's do this. And then the excitement really started to steamroll to the point where this, I'm pretty sure, was literally about a week or two ago, where we were feeling all this and having this, and now we've already planned our first session. So it's yeah,
Yeah, exactly. And it went very quickly from I don't think this can happen, and then it's like, wait, is this going to happen? I think it's going to happen. Oh my God, I'm so excited! This is going to happen, and here we are now recording a podcast about how excited we are.
exactly. And just the amount of messages we've created in our Discord, Frosthaven channel, and the amount of like excited animated gifs that are going in there, and yeah,
I will say though, all the excitement, I have absolutely no idea what this game is about. I have not. I
it's just
my
Cold Haven,
personality.
really. I think
Yeah, cold. That's it. I think it is it just the winter part of Gloomhaven where we're just
Frosthaven slowed down.
Yeah.
I
So
mean, Gloomhaven slowed down.
Gloomhaven. My personality is that I don't watch trailers. I don't read reviews. If it's something that I'm interested in and actually feel like I'm ever going to play, experience, watch, read, whatever, I just don't want anyone else kind of impacting that. So I tend to avoid everything. And this is what I was talking about, the experience of discovery. I love it. Like I just love diving into things, having no expectations, and just seeing where we land. So I'll be honest, A, because of that, and also B, because I never thought the game was actually going to come out, and then C, probably because I didn't think if it did, we could actually ever play it. I never looked into anything. So, yeah, other than when you chucked up all the starter classes and said who we're going to be, I was like, oh, wow, classes, that's cool. I didn't think of
Yeah,
that.
yeah, no, and like we can accept that. Phil's told me a little bit of information about it, nothing spoilery or anything like that, but he's done a little bit more research into the actual game itself and mentioned things like they've got updated personal quests, which would make sense because they wouldn't want to copy ones from Gloomhaven or make them too similar. The battle goal system has also taken a bit of an overhaul, which will make you really happy and excited. Hopefully it tweaks it enough. Um, that because I actually originally liked the battle goal system. I did see its flaws, but it wasn't enough to at all make me think otherwise of it. We know we're going to get new classes, like, and if based on the original Gloomhaven, all of the locked classes, Jaws of the Lion, and what you've told me with those classes, we know we're going to get a complete cast of brand new characters and asymmetries and play style, which is so much fun to delve into and explore.
And just on that, both believe that Isaac will do the impossible. And I say the impossible because of how many different classes there were in Gloomhaven and how very different almost all of them felt. The fact that there's probably going to be the same amount in Frosthaven, it sounds impossible to think that he's going to make them all different again, but I'm pretty sure he'll nail it.
Yeah, oh, definitely. Like the guy's a genius. This is not like a full fan club for Isaac, but at the moment it's kind of heading in that direction.
Yeah, I just really like Gloomhaven.
So I've done a little bit of research on what we're going to be running. There's an actual companion app that Lucky Duck Games teamed up with, I believe. I can never pronounce it. Stellafor, Stellafor. Isaac's publishing company, his game company. Sorry if I butchered that, if he's listening. But they've teamed up with them to create a companion app, which was really really exciting. And I had a little bit of a play with that to see whether or not it was going to be worthwhile having. I'm still not too sure. There's also Xhaven. Some people are using Xhaven, which is a free one that you can actually get on your phone and also on your computer and have it running off a screen. And there's also Gloomhaven Secretary, which a lot of people are raving on about. So I'll be basically going through a lot of those to work out which ones I think will work best before Monday.
Is there an option of hiring Morgan Freeman to come and narrate it for us?
No, but I have a surprise for you. I will wait till Monday to actually tell you about it or show it to you. And then when we get to the next episode, I'll explain what that one was. But
Very
kind
good.
of, yeah, very,
Intrigued.
very, very cool. Now we have seen the starting classes that are in there as well, and I've kind of just said to everyone, this. Uh, picking next to knowing anything about any of them. In typical group fashion, in our group, we just go with whatever sounds cool or whatever looks cool or whatever sings to us. I've selected the Drifter, which I don't know what that means. Does that mean like a homeless person or something?
Just kind of travels around, right? Just goes where the wind goes.
Like a hermit?
Don't they stay in one place, but they're by themselves?
They're what? They're there in one place, but they stay by themselves.
Yeah, they the hermits are isolated. That's what the hermit is, right?
Oh,
They
I
don't.
have absolutely no idea how this class is supposed to work. Then what am I supposed to do?
I can't tell you. Drift, maybe. That's is it? Yeah, we've got a friend who does that. So,
Yeah, okay. And you have selected.
Geminate, I believe it's pronounced. Which, you know what? I saw a picture of a bug purple thing with a sword and went, why would I not choose bugs? That sounds amazing, right? Like if you'll probably learn this about me. I choose grass in Eclipse and plants in Twilight Imperium, and I just like those type of things. And now I'm a swarm thing, which the small amount of research I've done into apparently is absolutely bonkers on how the class works. So I'm really looking forward to wiping the party every
I'm
scenario.
really hoping that this game is good because I'm not gonna lie to you. I mean, mind you, we had things like Bone Shaper and Deathwalker and Banner Spear. There's one more, Blinkblade. Actually, now those ones sound pretty cool. I think Drifter and Gemini are the two that stands out as being the has Tyzak run out of ideas, and they're in the starting lineup, right? You got Bug Guy and Guy who doesn't want to stand in one place. Um, it's curious to see what is in all the unlocked boxes. It wouldn't surprise me if there's a little pad of paper in there and a bunch of blank cards, and they go, "You come up with something."
Well, from what I'm looking, and I'm again very, very cautious of finding spoilers. So I just wanted to look up the card because I don't want it to be a long wait for when we first play our session. So I just wanted to have a quick look into it. I had a look at the character card and any special rules because again, the first thing I saw was this is super complex, and I basically have one deck, but it's made up of two different forms of cards, and I have to shift backwards and forwards between that form, different forms, and if I don't have the right cards, then I will exhaust. So
Hang on, run that by me again. You what? You have two decks. Two decks.
no, it's one deck, but it's essentially two hands of cards, and you can only play certain cards when
Wait,
you're
is
in.
that all the classes?
No, just my class.
That's just yours.
Yeah.
So this is not like Gloomhaven 2 where he's just going, oh, let's just make this more complicated and give everyone this dual spec kind of thing. That's really
We just
cool.
gave one of the starting classes that I happen to pick. So look, I again having faith in great designers. Am having faith that it'll be fun to play and be a challenge. I do like puzzles. I feel like I'm going to be playing 4D chess when I work out how to have my turn before I even put any cards down, and then you'll probably kill everything anyway, and I'll just have to stand there and do a default move. So we'll definitely see how it goes, but I'm looking forward to it.
Yes, yes. Oh, I'm very, very, very excited. Need to advise that if anyone is planning on listening to this podcast and is taking an interest in Frosthaven, we are going to be doing a fairly spoiler-filled campaign, and starting from the next episode when we actually do whatever the first scenario is, it's going to actually contain some various spoilers. So we do need to. I'll make sure that everyone understands that at the beginning of nearly every episode, and also labeling whichever one it is to avoid any complications there.
And if I could make a recommendation about how you continue to listen to us, please buy Frosthaven, play it, be a couple of weeks ahead of us so you can listen to us, hear our experience, and not have anything spoiled, but also get to enjoy listening to us.
Yeah,
That's probably
but
the
if you're going to do that, don't launch a podcast that I have to listen to, and then it'll be spoiled for then our playthrough, which will then be spoiled through our episodes.
it's just like Frosthavenception.
Exactly.
So
Yeah, we will look forward to very much to playing on Monday and getting our first taste of Frosthaven. I'm pretty sure it's going to be licking that toad again, and we're going to get really, really into it again. Is there anything else you want to add?
no, I'm looking forward to catching up again and being sucked into a 12-month commitment. I think that it sounds great, and I'm going to love every minute of it.
Yeah, until halfway through and you have a third child, right?
There's no absolutely zero chance of that. So it'll have to be some other life-changing event that happens.
Well, it could be us.
Maybe.
Exactly. So that's going to wrap up our episode of our first episode, actually, of a master's degree in rolling terribly. I'm Deddy, and that's Gaz, and stay tuned. We'll talk to you soon.
And remember, when it comes to rolling terribly, it's all on the wrist.